In this lesson, we're going to look at how to do the converse of the solving lesson. So today we're going to look at what happens if we are given a diagram with lines and a transversal and some angle measures. How do we prove that certain lines are or are not parallel? So this is the converse. So this is kind of the reverse of what we did before. If we know angle measures, we can determine if any lines are parallel by doing these 3 steps. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the given angles on the diagram that they give us. So they're either going to tell us that 2 angles are congruent or that they're supplementary, and we need to mark those accordingly. Based on those 2 angles that they're given, now we're going to highlight the transversal. So if we cannot find a transversal, or if there isn't a transversal, then that means we don't have parallel lines. So we can stop right there. But if we do have a transversal, then we need to use that and look at those 2 angles that were given and figure out, do we have one of those 5 angle pairs from our very first lesson? If we do, then we can use those to name our parallel lines. And if we do not, then we cannot. So remember the 5 angle pairs from that lesson were corresponding, alternate interior and exterior, and then consecutive interior and exterior. Okay. And then we're also going to look at, if we're given several lines with a transversal and some angle measures, how to use vertical angles and linear pairs in order to fill in a vertex to find the parallel lines in that kind of diagram. So let's dive in and look at our examples. For number 1, they're asking us which lines, if any, are parallel if we're given angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. So I'm going to mark, let's see, I have angle 1 and I have angle 5. And you can put arcs on it, you can color them, you can use the highlighting tool just so that you can see where those angles are. Next, we have to find our transversal. Okay, and so let's see, I'm going to use yellow. My 2 angles are here. Now this is kind of a simple diagram, but I want you to get used to looking at your 2 angles and saying, okay, which line touches both angles? And that has to be your transversal, okay? Because if you don't have one line that touches both of them, then you don't have a transversal. Okay, so here's my transversal. I've marked my 2 angles. Now I have to ask myself, do I have one of the 5? And I can see that angles 1 and 5 are corresponding angles, okay, which is one of the 5. So we do have parallel lines. The reason that we highlight our transversals when we get to more complicated diagrams, it's going to make it easier to see your parallel lines. So the transversal is the one line that crosses 2 lines, touches both angles. The parallel lines, therefore, have to be these other 2 lines. So it has to be this guy and this guy. Your transversal cannot also be parallel lines for any given situation. Okay, so we're given angles 1 and 5. So for this setup, we have the transversal is running up and down. It cannot be a parallel line. And I know that sounds a little confusing right now, but you'll see later why that's important. So we have corresponding angles. So we know that line L is parallel to line M. Okay, let's try the next one. Which lines, if any, are parallel given angle 2 and angle 4 are supplementary? So here's angle 2, okay, and here's angle 4. I'm going to put 2 dots on angle 4 because they're not congruent. You could also, if you wanted to, show you how to do that. If you want to use arcs, it's a little harder to do it when it's thick. So angle 2 is supplementary to angle 4. So I would put 1 arc on angle 2 and then 2 arcs on angle 4 because I don't want to mark them congruent, but I do want to know which 2 angles that we're talking about. Okay, and then I need to find my transversal. So notice that angle 2 and 4 are both made up of this vertical line here, or this, I guess, up and down line, kind of the vertical direction. But they're also both on this one. And neither one of them are down here on line M, which means we do not have a transversal for those two angles. We have a transversal in the diagram, but it doesn't apply to those two angles. So because they are a linear pair, they're not one of our 5. And so we can't say that we have any parallel lines. Okay, we don't have enough information. Okay. Example 3 says, which lines, if any, are parallel? Now, in this case, they're giving us angle measures. Okay, so we are going to take what we know about vertical angles and we're going to plug that in. Let me get a little smaller. It's going to get kind of messy. And 85 here and 105 here. Notice I'm just plugging in the vertical angles. Let me rewrite that one so it's not quite. There we go. Okay, and then we're going to do the linear pair to them. So remember, around any one vertex, we have two angles. So if I do 180 minus 75, that gives me 105. Oops, can't see the 1. So that means this other pair has to be 105. And if I do 180 minus 85, that gives me 75. So these two angles have to be 75. And if I do 180 minus 105, I get 75. So I'm going to plug those in. And then 180 minus 100, and I get 80. So each of those are 80. Okay, now what I'm looking for is around any given vertex. So we have a red one, we have a purple one, we have a green one, and we have a blue one, okay? So when I'm looking at these vertices, what I'm looking for is the exact same pattern around each of them. So when I look at the red one, I'm just looking at these 4 angles. I can see that I have 75 on the top left and 105 on the top right. And I can see down here that I have 75 on the top left and 105 on the top right. So these two are identical, which tells us these two lines are parallel. So my answer would be A is parallel to C. Your explanation, your evidence is all of those angle measures that you plugged in for me, okay? If you look at line B, we do have a 75-degree angle, but hopefully you noticed it's in the wrong position. So it's top right instead of top left. And I think I did the math wrong there because it would have to be 105. This should be 95. Yes. These should be 95. And so that actually, having my work up there actually helped me find my mistake. So I could go back and correct that. And then you'll notice line B and line D have a completely different pattern. So they are not parallel to each other at all. So the only answer for this one would be A would be parallel to C. Okay, number 4 again says, which lines, if any, are parallel if angle 1 and 9 are supplementary? Okay, so let's find angle 1. So we have this angle here, and angle 9 is supplementary. So they're not congruent. So I'm going to put 2 arcs instead of 1. Okay, now I have to find my transversal. And my transversal is this line here because it's the one line that touches both angles. Okay, and now I can see, if I look at it this way, I can see that I have consecutive exterior angles. Consecutive exterior angles are consecutive. That's the pair. They are always going to be supplementary. So that is correct, which means now I can find my parallel lines. So remember, since this line is the transversal, this line here on angle 1 and this line here on angle 9. So they would be our parallel lines. So if this were lines R, S, and T, we would say line R is parallel to line T.